I have a few slides I'm going to go through just to set the context. But before I do that, let me pick from the example of, or before the slides come on board, the context they've just set, Musa and Trace exchanging money. This is what the objective of the Pan-African payment and settlement system, and this is what we are going to showcase to you how we can do it, and believe it, in Africa, we can do it and do it very fast. So let's start the context by believing what we're going to do and what we're going to see and discuss today. So let me have my slides on the screen if possible. If not, I'll pick my laptop. Fantastic. We can go to the next one. Can I have the next slide, please? Am I supposed to? Okay, thank you. So I'm going to set the context by first, let's look at what do we mean by a digital infrastructure? We're talking about leveraging it, but first of all, what is it? These are combined physical and soft-based systems that can enable us to deliver service. We just had the example of trading from Niger to South Africa. How do we deliver those goods and that service in a digital form? Is by putting in place physical and software-based systems. And these include things like data centers, things like networks and telecommunication, things and digital payments. So these are the digital infrastructures we're talking about. Laying fiber optic, broadband, these are physical and digital infrastructures we're talking about. And two, when we talk about innovation and technology, innovation is all about coming up with new methods, coming up with new ideas, and the technology is a scientific knowledge for practical purposes. Now, in Africa, if we are to change things, we need to do things differently. Because if we do those things the same way we've been doing for the last 6 years, we'll get the same results. No prosperity, no movement. So we need to innovate and do things differently. And then when we talk about using these two, leveraging technology, innovation, and digital infrastructures to connect Africa, what do we actually mean by connecting Africa? In my opinion, we mean to create one market through the SFTA. So that has been done, but practically how do we connect it? It's also for the sake of increasing trade for our own prosperity. And this can only be done in two ways. As I get the next slide, it can only be done by improving how we pay to each other. The most important economic activity that a firm does is a payment. Every one of us has paid today or received a payment from any form. So once we refine and define and make efficient how we pay, this brings us to the interoperability we've been talking about. Let me have the next slide. The next one. Yes. Now, given that we've now identified that payments are the means that will bring us to prosperity and connect Africa, let's look at the global retail payment ecosystem and Africa, how it is. When you look at the North Africa, we have two ways. There's cash, there's the digital channels. Now, the digital channels, we have cards, we have account-to-account transfer, and also we have the digital wallets or mobile money. Now, elsewhere in the world, North America, Europe, Latin America, Asia and the Pacific, you can see that cash is 10% and the rest of the 90% is divided into three things. You have the cards taking a big chunk, 25%, 60% in North America, in Europe 50%, in Latin America 45%, in the Asian Pacific 25%. But let's look at Africa. Africa, we're at 8%, and 40% mobile money. And that's where I want us to concentrate. This is an issue we have in Africa. Mobile money wallets have leapfrogged and taken us to a level where we are actually the best in the world. We have adopted this as our payment mechanism in Africa. Now, the next big question is, how do we interoperate between MTN South Africa, MTN Rwanda, Airtel Ghana? How do we now pay through those channels with a lot of ease and efficiency, whereby we don't have to be charged highly, but also where I can do it from Airtel to MTN in the comfort of your bedroom? So this is the interoperability that what we're talking about, and this is where we should be arriving as Africa. The next slide, please. Now, I have some ideas, and some things are happening today. One, we could deploy a continent-wide sovereign digital payment infrastructure, and this Afrexim Bank and the sovereigns, some sovereigns, have set up a system called the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. This gives us the one platform where we plug in and be able to do this. To date, we have 15 central banks that have signed up. We have 150 commercial banks, and we are working to see how we get the wallets on board. And let me thank the APN that they're supporting this venture, this idea at the AU level. Now, this is where interoperability makes a lot of sense. This is where it can come in, and this is why we do it. We have laid the platform. We have laid the infrastructure. So how do you leverage this infrastructure that we've laid as a Afrexim Bank to achieve interoperability and have an ecosystem that we control as Africans, that we manage on our own? And two, empowering Africa with the digital financial inclusion, which is interoperability. We have existing systems in the regions. How do we make these to all plug into PAPs and be able to interoperate? These ideas. And also, we need to promote and incubate African fintech ecosystem and create a kind of an African Silicon Valley where we innovate and come up with ideas and be able to support them. So, ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, without spending a lot of time, these are some of the things we can do to achieve interoperability, to achieve economic prosperity for Africa, and be able to connect Africa.
Good morning, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for making time to be here to partake in APD 2025. I believe the vision of APD is to enhance prosperity, but prosperity is basically an outcome of digital infrastructure, trading goods and services on the continent, making sure we indeed have a single market. To achieve that, I'm joined by a very diverse panelist, and I want each of them to give basically a brief introduction about what they do, and I think I'll start with the ladies first. So, gentlemen, you have to wait. But before I go into the introductions, I just want to give you a little context. It's projected that by 2030, the Africa digital infrastructure or digital economy will be $180 billion. That's a lot of money. And today, if you look at the continent, the very foundation that allows digital infrastructure to thrive requires data. And without data, we're nothing in terms of trade. And the digital infrastructure also requires good talent. The digital divide is going to increase. It's going to actually broaden because of the advent of AI. I'm told AI can do more than, or the intelligence of all humans cannot compare to all the AI models that are being revealed and released now. I think all of you by now know about DeepSeek. If you've not heard of it, just Google it and read about the news. it's going to basically take over a lot of the models that are closed, and it's going to give accessibility to a lot of the open models in terms of intelligence aggregation. Also, power is becoming an issue. You can have data access if you don't have electricity. And so part of the digital infrastructure that we need to look at is access to power, access to electricity, renewable power, to enhance cost-effective generation of compute and storage. So there's quite a lot that we need to do as Africa, and I believe the policy advocacy from APD and the AU and all the partners would help us to get there. The last bit has to do with the talent component. Talent is irreplaceable. I think even though AI is here, we tell the AI what to do. So talent is definitely a key part of what we need to put in place to make sure the digital device is closing, right? I think there's projects like the Einstein Alliance, which is being led by Robert F. Smith and the Verizon Network to make sure this digital device is closing. But I think on the African continent, our telco partners, development banks are well positioned to do that. So you can see the picture is not so bad. Kenya is doing well. Ghana is doing well. Mauritius is doing well. They're all moving forward. Ghana is doing very well. South Africa is doing very well. And I think there's progress, not all doom and gloom. I think Africa is down. Let's give Africa a round of applause. All right, so I'll start with my first panelist, Dugan. If you can introduce yourself, you have about 50 seconds, but I'll give you 1 minute, if you can.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I am Ms. Efwa Abaswa Dugan, the Principal Consultant of DS Consortium. We are a collaborative network of tech companies and professionals leveraging our expertise to deliver innovative solutions, primarily in the tech space, to organizations in Africa and the Middle East. So that's basically what DS Consortium is and who I am.
Yes.
Seconds are up.
Yes, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Beulah Chirume, and I'm the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of ICT, Postal and Courier Services in Zimbabwe. This is a government role primarily responsible for the setting the policy framework in terms of ICT development, which includes the connectivity issues that we'll be discussing this morning. Thank you very much.
All the ladies first.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Krista McConnell. I'm the Chief of Education at UNICEF Ghana. So I spend a lot of my time thinking about education, thinking about the education system here, how are children performing in school, how we can improve the education system. And hearing the conversations today, we can't achieve strong markets, we can't achieve the prosperity we want without strong education systems. And I look forward to this conversation just for the strong ties between ICT and education, right? We need a strong, educated society to take advantage of ICT, but we also need ICT to improve our education system. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Zuleika Dobia Abdullah. I'm the founder and executive director for the Developer Group. So Developer has one vision to empower 1 million African girls in tech, leadership, and entrepreneurship. And we have a goal to actually create the next Telecom Valley right here in Ghana. Thank you.
Maybe I'll take it from here. My name is Shaibu Haruna. I'm the CEO for Mobile Money Limited. We're a subsidiary of MTN Ghana and part of MTN Group. Our mission is essentially to reach out to the last mile and to bring prosperity to every Ghanaian and every African. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning once again. My name is Bosco Sebavi. I'm the Deputy CEO for PAPS, and our objectives to connect Africa through payments and accelerate trade. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Jamel Ajgar. I am CEO of IT6 Group, based in Morocco, but we are working in lots of countries in Africa, like Benin, Ivory Coast, Senegal, Togo. We are doing the advisory for governments to develop their vision for digital transformation. And also we are giving them support to establish a portfolio for digital transformation, to identify some KPI to improve digital in the country.
Awesome. So we have a mix of what we call digital public infrastructure, education, aggregators, and startup advocates. And I think that's going to create a very beautiful panel session. I think we also have one last person who's supposed to join us, Sewa Boche, Senior Director from Microsoft. If you're here, kindly join us on the panel. Please, let's give her a round of applause as she comes up. Awesome. Awesome. So we already know where she's from, the big tech company, Microsoft. Actually, my background, I used to be the MD for Dell, and then I took on a role to work for EMC, which is the largest data storage company in the world, which Dell then managed. And it gave me a chance to see how digital infrastructure is being used to drive prosperity, to drive impact. And as my good friend John Bosco said, the first thing is the infrastructure, data centers, connectivity, and all those things. So I'd like to maybe ask John, where do you see the gap currently as you go around central banks to connect them to this sovereign payment infrastructure? Because without that, there's no trade. Where do you see the state of data centers and connectivity and all the readiness of these central bankers in terms of you wanting to connect them into the sovereign payment system? What are some of the issues that are coming out and the gaps that you're seeing?
Thank you very much. And this gentleman always puts me on the spot. I thought ladies would go first. But then we need to look at one thing as we are talking about payments and interoperability and the whole digital infrastructure. This because many a time there's a gap between the economic managers who are managing businesses who may not link the economic benefits that we can derive from that technology. For instance, data centers, as you say, how do we, as economic managers, we are looking for statistics to be able to target inflation, to target money supply and stuff like that. How do we now link these two? So that gap is missing. How do we link those two? Secondly, how do we link many other technology things like AI and other things? How do we bridge that gap between the economic benefits that we derive from having a strong technology or a strong digital platform or infrastructure? So governments have invested a lot in Africa in broadband, laying fiber optic, and all that. But this may go to, I'm not so sure that we're exploiting properly for our own economic benefit as African people. So there needs to be a lot of education. How do people link these two? I'm an economist by training, but I've been so much into these payment systems, and we are able to link payment systems, operators are able to link this, but are the pure economists able to link this? So that's where the gap is, sir.
I mean, is it true that Africa is actually lacking behind? I mean, compared to the US, US has about 2,700 major data centers. That's about 2,700 major data centers. If you compare that to Africa, a population of 1.4, we have less than 100 major data centers, right? Where does that leave us in this digital infrastructure, leveraging that to promote growth, given where the AI is going? Payment is good, but you need other things to support payments. So maybe Shaibu, you're quite Pan-African in your way in terms of what you guys are doing, and I'll come back to John on this gap because it's concerning. We do not allocate funding to it. So Shaibu, what do you see in terms of the investment that a telco like yourselves are putting towards growing, this digital infrastructure, which is very critical?
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone here. I think first things first. The reality we're facing in Africa is that the basic foundation of digital inclusion is about access, right? So today, a lot of our populace are actually excluded in Africa. You know, if you refer to the GSMA report for 2024, the usage gap in Africa is about 60%. So a lot of, and visualize it this way, Africa has a population of 1.4 billion, and of this 1.4 billion, effectively 60% of this population is actually excluded from this whole opportunity of interconnectedness. Now, the question is, why are we where we are? There's a piece around and which we have to figure out how to accelerate it, which is around access. And a big piece of it is most of our customers do not have smart devices, right? To be able to enjoy the services that we can use, big data and all these big technology stuff to address. So access issues have to be fundamentally looked at to create ease of customers just accessing a smartphone. And if you unpack that piece, you're talking here about the cost of a device, right? And if you break down the cost of device, you're looking at the tax component as one of the big barriers. Operators such as us do subsidize the devices, but that subsidy is not enough to bring the devices to the level of the customer to be able to afford it and use it. So there are fundamental issues around access to device, digital literacy, that need to be cracked. And it requires collaboration between regulation, government, the operators, in order to bring this accessibility, address the accessibility question. Now, over and above that, once we enable that, then we also know that there are fundamental issues that we need to deal with, which is around cybersecurity and all those underlying issues that prevent people who even otherwise have smart devices to actually participate in this economy. The moment we begin to do that, then we are also encouraging a lot more investment into the area, and this will spill off into investment in the infrastructure that we need to propel our industry. So I think we need to work together collaboratively to really address the access issue, so that we can bring in a lot more of our populace into the digital plane.
But I hear a star was born, right? A Starlink, one of the stars that was born. Is that helping the situation in terms of this connectivity, accessibility? Because also, I don't also know if we're manufacturing devices on the continent. Are we?
Well, that is another issue that has to be talked about, right? I mean, look, some of the technologies that we are seeing come up. Okay, let's look at the technology mix for operators today. Today, we are having to manage different types of technology. You have 2G networks still available on the platform, which are very expensive, and some of them are almost out of life. We need to keep it because these customers are still using feature phones. You have 3G, 4G. 4G is gaining momentum, but 5G is also a question on its own in terms of how it's been rolled out within the continent, and also the business case around 5G is still, under question in terms of the cost of acquiring spectrum and the utilization of it. Whilst other regions have actually evolved into more advanced utilization of 5G, we are struggling in terms of even justifying the case for such technology. So there's a lot to be done on the technology plane in order to get us to a level where we can further deepen access to digital services.
Okay, so we're not manufacturing smartphones. We have a multi-spectrum network that's running in Africa, and you're saying we need more money to build these things. So I think I'll jump to you. Microsoft has a lot of money. I heard Satya Nadella at Davos talking about 80 billion to build AI. What trends are you seeing from digital infrastructure from Microsoft as a big tech on the African context, what are you seeing and what sort of things do you think could advance the cause of leveraging this digital infrastructure for us?
Sure. I think the first thing I wanted to say, so by the way, thank you for having me here. Absolute pleasure. So, yeah. In the conversation, I think 2 conversations ago, you're talking about data centers and should we be worried because it feels as if we're lagging behind. What I would say to that is the pace of change is so frenetic, it's furious. There aren't enough data centers that have been built today, and the roadmap for data center expansion is, I mean, it's enormous. And for sure, companies are looking to other places to build, and the roadmap does look at other places in the world, around here-ish, that, you know, could be interesting for a data center expansion perspective. I think when you think about some of those roadblocks and what are the things that are going to help us to accelerate, one of the things that I consider is if Ghana is a microcosm of Africa, I would say that here in Africa we are amongst one of the most innovative, creative, ambitious minds. I mean, I don't live here, unfortunately, but Ghana's my home. And whenever I come, I'm blown away, like innovation, small I, the way in which we have to overcome just even daily challenges. So if the hypothesis is true, then for me, the problem statement is more around how do we harness the power of innovation and scale it across the continent. And that has to be around thinking about how do you inject capital. I mean, anyone who does innovation will know that the route to success is failure. So you have to experiment and fail severally. But failure doesn't feed you. So if you're saying, well, why are we not creative enough? Why are we not doing more? There is a practical element. So I really liked in the context setting, the gentleman to my left talked about creating like innovation hubs and like, you know, the sort of the Silicon Valley kind of concept. And so I think having investment, and it slightly addresses the education and literacy piece that you just mentioned, having centers of excellence that really focus on building those innovative skills. And by the way, when we talk data literacy, I mean, it's perhaps more for me, it's not to say that necessarily something is lacking, but every day things multiple are changing. So the learning is a lifelong thing, so it starts at school and it continues throughout everyone's lifetime. So I think getting into that kind of motion and having a bit of a mindset shift around what it means to continuously learn in this environment, I think is super important. And I think investing in things like, as I say, the innovation, technology, research hubs, and then you can roll that out and bring the minds together to create things that are specific to the African context. So we do a lot more things. I think yesterday someone talked about controlling our own IP. So that really resonates with me. And so that's what I'm seeing, and that's where my positivity comes from. I think that it's in a generation, in 20 years, we could be having a very different conversation if we're able to harness some of these things and implement
But, I mean, talking about harnessing our own IP, it's sort of difficult right now, because all the African startups that we see are building their platforms in AWS cloud, right? So, and the investors, the equity investors, the venture capitalists are all coming from the West as well. And I mean, we run an innovation hub here in Ghana, right? The investors demand that you basically set up offshore, right? Because of the investment protection issues. So, I mean, developer is doing some amazing stuff, UNICEF is doing some amazing stuff, and Dugan is doing some amazing stuff. The issue is not that we're not innovative. There's no access to capital, right? So, if you look at the capital pools that are available, the restrictions on Africa, we only have 1% of global VC. Almost 80% was in Silicon Valley still. So, what can we do? Right, we have the data center issues. Our data is in the cloud. We don't have enough data centers. We have payment challenges. We have literacy challenges. How do we harmonize a common front so that Shaibu's ambitions to be fulfilled. So maybe UNICEF, what are you seeing talent-wise? Is the education issue? Digital divide is still sort of becoming a mainstay because everything's moving so fast, right? I mean, the little kids now have more knowledge how to use tablets than some of our grandfathers, right? There you go.
Absolutely, thank you. So, I come from a teaching background, so my one lesson I want everyone to take away here today is one statistic that I'll use to summarize education system. And that number for Ghana is 5.7. Okay, that seems like an abstract number, right? What is 5.7? What does that mean? So the World Bank has this indicator called Learning Adjusted Years of Schooling, and Ghana's number for that is 5.7. And I know, this is not just a Ghana conference. We have people from all over the continent, so you can look up on your phone what your number might be for your specific country. So for Ghana, it's quite good of how many children are accessing school and staying in school, right? So the average years of schooling in Ghana is 11.6. This is quite good, right? Kids are accessing school, staying in school for 11.6 years. But here's where the 5.7 comes in. It's the equivalent of only 5.7 years of education, right? That is the quality issue that we're dealing with. Here in Ghana, we have a learning crisis. And it's all about efficiency, right? We have the schools, infrastructures, we are paying teachers, we have materials, but we are only 50% as effective as we need to be in the education system. Right, there's a lot of work to be done in that. And there's many reasons of why we're only 50% effective, right? Maybe teachers aren't showing up on a daily basis, maybe kids are absent from school.
What ages are you looking at? What age range?
So this is your pre-tertiary, right? So, you would hope that 11.6 is 12 years, but again, we're doing quite well that it's the 11.6. So there's many reasons why we're only half as efficient as we can be. But here's where I think technology comes in, and really where I'm showing lots of promise, is I think ICT and technology is our opportunity to take that 5.7 and really blow it up to a much higher number. So, could that be an 8? Could that be a 9 for Ghana? I really think there's a lot of hope here. And so I think with the right teachers, which is where kind of the education sector comes in, but accessibility is kind of the key formula, I think, to really lift that level of quality learning in Ghana.
Could you double-click on accessibility again? What exactly for the audience? Accessibility is being used so many times, sure. And the context could be varied. So if you could go down a little bit.
Great. So I prepared myself just for this. So in the schooling context, right, we have half of primary schools and 1/3 of junior high schools without electricity.
We're good.
We have 90% of primary schools without internet connectivity in Ghana.
97.
90. 80% of primary and junior high schools are without ICT equipment. Right, so in terms of accessibility, we have a lot of work to do. Then on the teacher side, only half of teachers in Ghana have some form of ICT training. So I think I liked the quote from Microsoft on the route to success is failure. I think in the education sector, particularly in the COVID years, right, we've learned a lot about what to do and not to do in the ICT space. And one of them is even if you have equipped schools that have connectivity, that have electricity, if the teachers aren't trained and using that and know how to use that technology, you're not going to actually have the learning outcomes that you need in that space. So what we learned doesn't work. We learned that providing hardware alone does not achieve the learning results that you want. So just giving a laptop, just giving a tablet without actually some complementary interventions is not going to work. We learned that just having a cool innovation that's not actually targeting the context-specific problem is also not working. So if you think about why we're at 5.7 and we're not at 11.6, we're not at full efficiency, going to the root causes of why children aren't learning, why they're not showing up in the classroom, those are those specific contexts that might differ from one school or one community to the next. So targeting those. That they're not designed by the users, right? Maybe these technologies are designed here in Accra, and that's not the reality that you're facing in the Savannah region. So, really designed by the users who will use them, and kind of mostly making sure that we have strong monitoring throughout to making sure this is actually making the change that we want. But I guess in closing that, I can say, echoing even your own sentiments, there's amazing hope here in Ghana, right? We're seeing so much innovation, so much change. I think even within UNICEF, we're doing some really cool things in the ICT space. We're working with Microsoft, for example, on Minecraft education. So really how through games do we get children learning and interested in STEM. We're using digital technology to help some basic literacy and numeracy skills. We're using online platforms to get youth into skilling and think of different reward systems. So there's lots of amazing things going on. We just really need to think about kind of targeting those problems and working at scale. And it is my hope that we take that 5.7 number and really can boost that up.
Wow, let's give her a round of applause. Some good education there. So you talked mostly about Ghana, right? And the situation, I think, is consistent with other African countries. We have Morocco, we have Zimbabwe. Maybe it'd be good for Doc to share some insights on the Zimbabwe landscape, education policy, how that connects to digital infrastructure in Zimbabwe. I think Zimbabwe is very rich. You guys can see all those, right?
Thank you very much, moderator, for giving me the floor, and also just to acknowledge the organizers of this event and also the Republic of Ghana for the kind hospitality. Now, I was just looking at your theme to say invest, connect, integrate. And in this particular session, we are talking about leveraging digital infrastructure in innovation and technology to ensure that there is connectivity. You will appreciate from the onset that digital infrastructure, innovation, and technology are pervasive. In other words, even those in education, like the previous speaker has just said, it is actually being driven by ICTs. For us to achieve the prosperity that we are talking about in terms of Africa, we need that to be driven by the power of digital initiatives. As such, yes, Zimbabwe, we are on board, and we are actually saying within the framework of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, where we hope to achieve or to enhance intra-African trade and economic integration. It is therefore very, very crucial for us to attain or achieve quality connectivity, fostering on seamless, borderless. There shouldn't be any difference between Ghana, Zimbabwe, and the other countries, facilitating ease of doing business within our own African context to bring in trade efficiency and more collaboration. I think the previous speaker who set the tone for this very important discussion focused on digital platform payments. And we are saying each of our countries has got strength in various economic sectors. For Zimbabwe, we are agro-based. And if we would want to sell products in South Africa, in Ghana, at the moment it's quite difficult without that common digital platform. So we need that for us to be able to do much more. And what are we saying? Moderator, I'm just looking at the various initiatives that we have across Africa. For instance, the Smart Africa has just launched the bulk internet capacity purchase across the African countries. For SADC, we have the Regional Infrastructure Development Master Plan, again focusing on infrastructure development. COMESA, they've launched the Africa Cloud and also the North-South Corridor development. And I'm saying, within the context of all these initiatives, I think we must ask ourselves a fundamental question. What is it that we intend to do beyond connectivity? What is the aim of connectivity? And for this forum, it is for us to attain a single market to enhance Africa's participation in global connectivity. You asked me about education, and that is very important. I'm not the education person, but I'm saying in my country, we are there in the schools, putting up infrastructure to enable online and digital learning, because we need to prepare our young people for the future to be able to be part of the entire digital ecosystems. We are also encouraging startups, and we think that is very, very important to create innovation, in creativity in our own young people, to be able to develop solutions for our own context. We talk of AI, we talk of frontier technologies, but what are the models that are being used in the specific countries? And that is really a big question that we must attend to. Digital payment platforms across countries. For us in Zimbabwe, I can gladly report that I can make a payment directly using one of the mobile money players into South Africa, into the UK. But the question is, why can I not do the same with Ghana? You know, we need much
hold on
more.
to the Ghana one, because you're going to get me to a question to Shaibu and Bosco again. But everybody's been talking about single market. And I think the policy formation has been fragmented. John has been, Mr. Bosco has been dealing with 55 different countries. He mentioned 15 central banks are connected to PAPS. But it's taking him for a long time. India has one central bank. China has one central bank. And we're competing, right, in terms of the race, in closing the digital divide, financial inclusion, and all these other major pressures that we're facing. Hisham, you're a policy guy. Are we creating policy in a uniform approach, or Smart Africa is doing their thing, Ghana is doing its thing, South Africa is doing their thing, ECOWAS, the regional bloc, is doing their thing? Where are we from a policy perspective in reference to digital infrastructure? Is it fragmented or it's harmonized?
Okay, thanks for the question. For this, we have to think and to act smart. Yesterday, I have the privilege to assist to the intervention of Dr. Zuma from South Africa, and she said a good sentence. She said, Africa is not poor, African is poor. And I believe that I can say that the same way, Africa is not smart, but Africans are smart. When you get research from Africa, in each country they are not enough good in their country, but once they go to US, to France, to Europe, they are leading big research centers in this. So we have to use this resource that we have and to think about how can we work together in this continent. If we are thinking about regulation in each country, about thinking that we have to move country by country, region by region, it could work. But we have to think big, but we have also to act. We have to act small, we have to act fast, but we have also to act, let's say very, very smart. Because there is a lot of shortcut to work. I'm very pleased to hear that there is collaboration between Nigeria and Ghana for mobile payments. They don't wait all Africa to have this protocol for trade to start working. There is a lot of bilateral, let's say, collaboration regarding digital to get it working. So we can work under African Union, we can work under regional, let's say, association of countries to move, but also we have to not to wait a lot, because if you are waiting for the best regulation the best environment to be working together in Africa, we will lost a lot of time. And so we have to learn from each other. For example, we're taking Ghana. Ghana are very good in mobile payment, fintech. So there's lots of things for as Morocco to get from Ghana. If we take, for example, smart city, we are, let's say, advanced in Morocco because we did a lot. And also in this area, I will say something very important. Smart city in Morocco didn't start in Casablanca, which is the big city. It didn't start in Rabat, which is capital city. It didn't start in Marrakesh, which is very now. It starts in Berkane. Berkane is a small city. I am very sure that nobody in the meeting room except Mr. Ducadi, former Minister of Health, know Berkane. Because it is a small city with only 20,000 citizens. And they start smart city without waiting for the country to do regulation for smart city, to push for smart city. It starts because we had a man, the governor of the city, who is very, let's say, patient of digital. He said, yes, I will get Berkane, the first city in Morocco, to be a smart city. And he starts working from the beginning. He starts from have some system talking to each other, have some service to citizens, less paper in administration, and he became the first reference in Morocco to doing this. It is an example of the way we can work also in Africa. We have not to wait from African Union to give us all the guidelines. Yes, it's good to have this guideline, this vision. We have 2063 vision, which is good, but we cannot wait until we have the best regulation, the best environment. It will never happen. So as time is fast, we have to move fast. We have to move forward. If we take Europe, the best country in digital is not France, not UK, it's Estonia. And small country, they decide with the good vision to go forward. I believe that in Africa, we can move like this. We can say each country has something to share. We can start to do some experimentation. We need less regulation. I know that we are with Ghana Central Bank, and nobody who doing innovation like Central Bank. Believe me, because innovation is something we all want to be free to develop. Yes, it is something we have to have some regulation for privacy.
I hear you on everything, right? Are we doing it in a fragmented way, or are we harmonized in the way we're regulating? Because if digital infrastructure is the foundation, right? Ghana is good mobile money. South Africa is good with something else, right? Zimbabwe is good with agriculture. How are we moving forward? Because by the time 2063 gets here, a lot of us may be very old.
I think that we are going the two ways. Yes, the event of today, thanks for RPA Network for having this event, talking about connection, integration, investment. In this space, we have the chance to discuss together, to share experience, and to harmonize our vision, okay, which is good. But we cannot wait until 2060 to do that. So we have to move, we have to accept that there's some country can go fast, because they have the opportunity, and we cannot stop them to say, yeah, stop, you have to wait for regulation for continents. We have to accept this, and the same way we have to move with some harmonization for some which is happening. But believe me, it's easy, because also digital infrastructure and solution and with artificial intelligence are moving fast. So if we are doing regulation for tomorrow, we don't know how tomorrow will be. So we need to accept this and accelerate harmonization, accelerate doing the action in some country, and having some like this space to harmonize and to share, and also to be leading this action in our countries. So as conclusion for this, if we want to be perfect, we have to wait for harmonization. If we want to be realist and to have, because there is, let's say, fight for digital between US, between China, between Europe. So we have to be some way to find our way for doing this and to be in this radar for this. So we have to move. We have to encourage countries that are going fast. We have to encourage people are doing fast. We have to encourage also startups. We have to find a way. They talk about Silicon Valley in Africa. Yes, we aim this. So we need to work together, and also to learn from together and to act together. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's give him a round of applause. That was a very good one. The young people that are building the future of Africa digital innovation, they're doing it in front of their laptops, YouTube. Some of them don't go to universities. Some of them are hanging out with their friends, learning how to build games. They learn how to build software systems that are changing agriculture, right? How to solve irrigation issues. Some people are learning how to build drones, right? So what do you see, Dugan and Zagari, what do you see from the developer perspective? I think you guys are more closer to the youth like me. You know, what do we see? So you guys can go first, Dugan.
No, thank you very much. So when it comes to building the human capital in the digital ecosystem, we're seeing a lot of progress in that regard. We're seeing a lot of young people being more interested in AI. When you go to GitHub, you're seeing an increasing number of young people, you know, in that ecosystem building various technologies. So it's quite impressive. Nonetheless, the numbers are not that encouraging because we're competing on the global scale. We're competing with those in Europe and in Asia. And very recently, we did find out that DeepSeek, built its LLM model with just under $6 million US. So it brings a very interesting perspective into the conversation that if $6 million US can build an intelligent model, far intelligent than ChatGPT, because I use it myself and it's far better, then it means that what are we doing in Africa, right? And the funding I know is available because funding is being put in various things. 6 million is not much.
A mansion, right? For an African
It's not
millionaire.
much. So that funding is available, and we've got brilliant minds in Africa, brilliant minds in Nigeria and in Ghana who are driving the AI, agenda. So you go to Nigeria, you have AI startups focusing mainly on how they can harness, and build our own AI Africa LLM models, and they need funding for that to happen. And so if 6 million can build what DeepSeek has done, we can definitely do the same here in Africa. And it's important for us to look at how can we start building an African LLM that is able to solve our problems and tell our story at the same time. And so in Ghana, there are various tech companies as well as organizations like Vodafone, where I've worked before, MTN, where I've also worked before, that are driving various digital literacy. So they're giving, MTN is, apologies for speaking on your behalf, but MTN is driving an AI and robotics with my former alma mater, KNUST, which they're driving via the engineering department. So they're teaching young students in tech, how to harness AI, how to build robotics, engineering, and that's very fantastic. You go on other, routes on the elementary level up onto the secondary level, various training and capacity into data analytics, which is very crucial, how they can harness the data that's in the environment, transform them into making informed decisions. And so there are bits and pieces of things happening in our ecosystem, and we need to figure out clearly how to have it all done in a very uniform manner, right? And luckily last year, Ghana launched our digital policy. So we have a policy that was launched by the NCA via the ministry. So there's a component of that is supposed to look at digital literacy, which is the fundamental. So we talk about the infrastructure development, which is important, all right? And then we look at the literacy part, the human capital. That part is the driving force of the digital infrastructure. Because once you put in place the, we've got the internet connecting all of Africa, which various companies are doing that via the Africa 50. We, have 5G in the countries like Ghana, which we already are looking to deploy. We need to look at the human capital aspect as well. How are we harnessing that? And so the conversation really needs to be, how do we drive funding into that space, right? And you had mentioned earlier on that, funding has been a challenge. And it's also because we are also not driving the conversation or actually showcasing what we are doing in the tech space in Ghana, in Africa, in Kenya, and of course in the northern part of Africa. The only conversations we see are what South Africa is doing, what a bit of Kenya is doing. So we need to see how we can fine-tune it from a national level to a regional level and a continental level, and present ourselves as these are African tech minds or young African tech minds bringing up innovative and disruptive, strategy or tech in the AI ecosystem, and this is from Africa. And this is how I personally believe that we can get funding internally and externally to harness and get more people into the tech ecosystem and grow our human capital in that regard, as well as our digital literacy in that regard.
Hey, let's give her a round of applause. Efwa has given us a very, very deep perspective. Large language models drive intelligence, right? So 6 million can do it. For sure, Africa can do it. What do you see?
Okay, so based on my experience with developer, I would like us to just think about something. So imagine you call out for people to come and work for your organization, and then you have budding young African youth popping in with their CVs, and it's time for them to they qualify, and it's time for them to work. And you realize that they don't even know how to use some of these simple ICT tools. That's the reality of some of the people we live in Ghana. So with Developer, we started with a vision to actually empower more girls in technology, and then we started up north. As someone who grew up in an urban city in Accra, I went to a private school. I had access to a laptop. My parents were good. I had computer literacy training when I was growing up. But then the reality hit me when I went to the north, and I was supposed to teach girls full stack development, only for us to call for applications, and then girls registered. They come to class, and I want to teach them coding. Okay, so put on your computers, let's download Visual Studio Code, and people are looking at me. And I'm like, okay, what's up? I don't know how to use the computer. And that was what made us think everything through. Sometimes, because we have certain privileges, we do not understand that the reality to access to digital tools actually is part of the problems we face in Ghana in trying to advance. So we realize that even though you are in Accra and you're trying to do what you can do with laptops, with computers, there are some people that are actually living in this country that do not even know what it means to hold a mouse. But moving forward from there, we realized that based on statistics, we just have only 26% of women working in the tech workforce, and which is part of the contributing factor to why we don't really advance. Because if you want to really advance technology, if you want to advance education as a country, if you want to compete, you need to be able to bridge the digital divide and the gender and disparity we have in the continent. So with Developer, we train girls in technology. But then we also realized, why do we have to wait for them to get to the age of 18 to 35 before we start training them in tech? And so this year, because of our experience and getting a little bit of funding, we thought that it's very important to come up with a project where we call Tech Forward. And that's why I was really glad when Christine was talking about the lack of ICT trainers and teachers who really didn't know much about IT tools. So we realized that we don't need to wait for kids to grow up in school. We have to start now. So we're starting a project to train teachers with digital skills and then knowing IT. So whether you are an ICT teacher or a science teacher or an English teacher, you need to know how to use ChatGPT to help you with some of the resources you can come up with. You need to know how to use DeepSeek. You need to know how to use some of the Microsoft tools. You need to understand what your computer can do for you as an educator, so that when you are educating the kids, it's like they are learning from you. But when the trainer doesn't really know what the trainer is really teaching the kids, then we are producing low quality students. Like she mentioned, just about 5.7%. If you go to school for 11 years and the quality of your education is just 5.7, or yes, it's the equivalent of 5.7 years. I mean, it's good, but it just tells us that we need to build quality. And in today's world, digital training is the quality we need, because it gives you the opportunity to level the playing ground between somebody who is learning in Ghana and somebody who is learning in USA. If you have access to the internet, you can still learn from Udemy what an American is going to learn. You can learn cybersecurity online based on the information that an American is going to learn, or somebody in India or somebody in Europe. But how would you be able to learn that if you don't also have access to these infrastructure and IT tools, and you're living in Ghana?
Wow,
so,
you almost made me sad, right?
Yeah.
I was listening to your story, and I think some of our leaders who have access, policymakers, investors, development bank partners, need to hear some of these stories, right? Because whilst we're dreaming of the power plants and the factories and the hospitals and, big data centers, the fundamentals have to be right. Right, and I think young women should not be left out.
Yes.
I think the census was saying, well, what, 50% are women in Ghana and 50 are men, which is like an equal playing field. Yeah. So I think this brings us to the discussion. I think we run out of time, but Telecel would join us on stage and give us a wrap-up. I think Anita is behind me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before Anita speaks, though, I think it will be fair to just get one sentiment from you all, an advice to the policymakers, the investors, the organizers, and just to share a warning, because my thing is the speed of AI cannot be ignored. My warning that if agentic models can do what an entire company can do, if we don't rush for adoption, a lot of our jobs will be made useless. So that's my warning to the leaders and the policymakers to take this very, very serious. Over to you.
Thank you.
1, 2 seconds.
Thank you very much, Sam. And so, as representing DS Consortium, one of our focuses is on driving innovation and also working.
One line.
It might take a bit, right? But the focus of this forum is to drive a single market and for prosperity. And so fundamentally, whilst we're getting our digital infrastructure right, that's the hard work side, we need to harmonize our policy when it comes to digital literacy. It's very important for us to do that. How do we harmonize the various scattered digital literacy in all of the various countries onto a regional, probably on a very small level, on a regional level, and then onto a continental level for us to be able to achieve what we need to achieve.
Awesome. Thank you so much. One line warning.
Yes, thank you very much. Just one line to say the emphasis should be placed on regional collaboration, public-private partnerships, more investment in digital infrastructure, digital literacy, cybersecurity, and of course, encouraging innovation in fintech.
Thank you very much, Doc.
Okay. One sentence, yes, for policymaker, we have with us African Union, IPN, and other institutions. So we have to think big. Let's have plans, let's have vision, prepare plans, but also act fast, small, and smart. Thank you.
I'll give you one word: partnership. Right? We know where we are in terms of quality. We know the rich opportunities that are there, but none of this is possible without partnership, and we're in a room full of amazing actors to make those partnerships happen.
Thank you.
I was just about to say that developer will come at your door. Please support us to empower the next generation of girls in tech. Thank you.
to connect Africa, we need to interoperate our payment systems, but also work together to achieve that.
Thank you, John.
Mine is a very simple call. We've had a lot of talk. It's time to walk the talk. Thank you.
And Sewa?
Thanks. I'd say don't let funding be a barrier. Start small, prove value, iterate, and then scale.
Excellent. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen,
and I'm going to
listening. Anita is going to wrap up for us.
Sorry to step on your toes, my brother. I'm just going to ask your panelists to, with respect, please remain seated while we give this session what I would like to call a wrap-up, the cherry on top of the cake, the essence of moving dialogue into action, any practical example. Please allow me to bring to the stage the CEO of Telcel Cash, Philip Amoateng, who will give us a wrap-up on leveraging digital infrastructure, innovation, and technology to connecting Africa. You may, whichever one. The stage is big enough for us, all of us to share. Please warmly welcome Mr. Amoateng.
Your Excellencies, the Chair, guest of honor, my own group chairman, Nicholas Bohr, Telecel Group Chairman. Thank you for coming. CEO, Africa Prosperity Network, my brother Gabi, thank you for the good job done. Distinguished guests, industry leaders, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and warm welcome. I deem it an honor to be speaking at the African Prosperity Dialogue 2025 to wrap up for such a lightning discussion around leveraging digital infrastructure, innovation, and technology to connect Africa. This subject is at the core of driving African continental integration and shared prosperity in alignment with African Union's Agenda 2063. African widespread prosperity can only be achieved if we can efficiently and inclusively leverage digital infrastructure, innovation, and technology to connect everyone. Our shared prosperity is bound together by the advancement of innovation, technology, and strong infrastructure. We live in a time where the future of our continent is being shaped not only by the physical roads we build or the energy we generate, but by the invincible network that power our economies, our communities, and our relationships. These are the digital highways of technology, which is now the lifeline of our socio-economic development. As Africa continues its journey towards shared prosperity, one thing is clear. The key to unlocking the continent's vast potential lies in its ability to harness technology, particularly digital infrastructure, and inclusive connectivity. As we come together to the African Prosperity Dialogue under the theme, Delivering Africa's Single Market Through Infrastructure, Invest, Connect, Integrate, we are reminded of the ambitious goals set in the AFTA, that is African Continental Free Trade Area, and then African Union Agenda 2063. AFTA aims to create the largest free trade area in the world, encompassing over 1.3 billion people across 54 countries. The goal is clear: to grow the intra-African trade, enhance regional economic integration, and uplift the livelihood of millions. But to achieve this, we must first address the key barriers standing in the way, that is the connectivity. Today, Africa is still one of the least connected continents in the world. Although the digital landscape has improved in recent years, we still have much work to do. According to the International Telecommunication Union, over 300 million people in Africa are still offline. This lack of connectivity is not just a matter of access, it is a matter of opportunity lost. Without reliable, affordable access to digital world, millions of Africans are locked out of global economy. First, we need to invest in expanding digital infrastructure. In recent years, mobile broadband has grown rapidly across the continent, with Africa now being home to about 1 billion mobile subscriptions. Yet we still have challenges with connectivity in rural and remote areas. By prioritizing investment and collaboration in broadband networks, fiber optic cables, 5G infrastructure, we can ensure that every African has access to the opportunity that the digital economy provides. Let's come home. At Telecel, we are committed to playing our part in this transformation. We are not just about providing telecommunication service, we are about enabling the African dream. From mobile financial service that empower farmers in the rural Ghana to e-learning platforms that offer children access to quality education, regardless of where they live, we are seeing the power of digital connectivity unfold in real time. But we must know that work doesn't stop to providing infrastructure. We must integrate digital service across industries, agriculture, healthcare, education, trade, and finance. The growth of the mobile money in Africa is a prime example of how technology can leapfrog traditional barriers. Today, mobile money services have helped millions of Africans access financial services in the real time, creating an ecosystem of growth that reaches for beyond the cities and into the hearts of the rural communities. Recent studies by GSMA have shown that sub-Saharan Africa has more than half of the world's mobile money accounts, with daily transactions amounting more than $3 billion in 2023. We need to increase this momentum to expand the financial inclusion to benefit every African. Telecel is committed to collaboration to fully realize mobile money interoperability across Africa, with ongoing discussion with regional partners and participation in industry-wide initiatives focused on cross-border payments. There is a critical piece of the puzzle that I must mention today. That is innovation. Digital infrastructure alone is not enough. Africa is the youngest continent in the world, with more than 65% of the population under the age of 25. This is an opportunity to create an enabling environment when young people can solve real problems on the continent using digital tools such as artificial intelligence to address challenges of healthcare, energy, agriculture, and education. African prosperity also hinges on building consistent supply of skilled talent to propel the integration of the technology into the future. That is by digital literacy, the fundamental in our education curriculum, and run through all the ranks from basic schools to the universities. Telecel, through its foundation, has what we call Connected Learning Program. Over 20,000 children have so far benefited from this program. And it is in line with our commitment to train more than 10,000 children every year up to 2030 to grow the digital skills in Ghana. As we move forward, I must also embrace the integration across border, across sectors, and across industries. The digital economy cannot thrive in isolation. We need to harmonize policies, regulations, and standards to ensure that the digital marketplace is as integrated as the physical marketplace we have today. The African Union Agenda 2063 lays out a bold vision of prosperous, integrated, and peaceful Africa, the one that is governed by the power of innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship. As we achieve this vision, we must move from ambition to action. The upcoming, the panel has done a very good job, and I appreciate what one of our ladies spoke about, the fact that our education level is low. Out of 11 years of education is equivalent to 5.7. That is not good enough. We need to work together to improve this. I believe we can collaborate, work together in concerted effort, and can deliver African market, single market, and engineer more prosperous, inclusive, and connected Africa. Thank you for listening.